Monday, December the 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m., Winsboro, South Carolina. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It's good to see such a big crowd. Next, we are down to the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0 on approval of the agenda. Next, we are down to item 4, invocation. Councilman Roof.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you for everyone here. I want to lift up a special prayer tonight for my family and my brother-in-law, John Stevens, who passed away Sunday morning, and just be with them and all of us during this time. Lord, I also want to ask that we all remember that during this Christmas season that Jesus is the reason for the season. And Lord, this also that we have so much going on that we remember to, although we may disagree, let's try to agree to disagree and just try to work together to work through so many things that we're dealing with. I want to pray for this county and the state and this nation and just ask that your blessings on it and that you guide and direct us to all the decisions that we have to make. Lord, we just thank you for all our many blessings. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Councilman Roof. Next, we are down to approval of minutes for the regular meeting November the 13th, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0 on item number 5. Now we are down to item 6A, public presentations, a proclamation recognizing the retirement of Debbie Stum, Director of Voter Registration and Elections. Dr. Roberts. Ms. Stidham, would you please come forward, please? You can bring your family as well.
They're like, The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas Ms. Stum began her career in Fairfield County with an appointment by the legislation delegation to the Voter Registration and Elections Board in 1999. In 2002, she was hired as clerk and remained in that position until she was promoted to deputy director in 2005. She was once again promoted to director in 2006 by the board, where she has served with resolute devotion until her retirement. Ms. Stum is a certified election officer for the state of South Carolina and has received an Excellence in Elections Award from the State Election Commission. She is a member of the South Carolina Association of Registration and Elections Officials, also known as SCARE, and has served on several SCARE committees over the years. Ms. Stum says she is most proud of her team of dedicated workers, staff, and commissioners, and her time as director has only been polished by their dedicated commitment, level of integrity, and belief in our democracy. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Chair Doug Pauley, District 5, and the members of the Fairfield County Council would like to recognize and congratulate Debbie Stum on her retirement. Your consistent loyalty to Fairfield County and its citizens will never be forgotten. We pray God's continued blessings upon you. So ordered this 11th day of December, 2023. Oh, come on.
Next, we are down to 6B, recognition of all-star football teams. Mr. Lucas Vance, Parks and Recreation Director.
Today, as I'm joined by our Fairfield County 10U All-Star football team. This team is the 2023 SCRPA Central District Champions. These young men have represented all of the Central District during the state tournament on December 2nd in Rock Hill. During the district tournament, Fairfield defeated the city of York 20-0 and the city of Chester 20-14. That victory earned Fairfield's 10U All-Stars the title of Central District Champions, a title which had not been earned by a Fairfield team during my tenure with Parks and Rec, which started over 9 years ago in 2014. I would like to give special thanks to all of our staff, our volunteer coaches, and specifically our head coach, Tyler Gregory, for all of their dedication and commitment to these young athletes. Additionally, I would like to thank the parents, the community members that brought players to practice, purchased Gatorades, bought snacks, and supported these players through those long nights during the regular season and into the state tournament. Please help me now in recognizing and applauding this accomplishment. I would like to recognize each player now individually, although all of our players are not here because of other obligations, but I would like to recognize them now. Number 8, Ben Anthony, played cornerback. Number 5, Jeremiah Boulware, played linebacker. Number 72, Quentin Caldwell Jr., was offensive line and defensive line. Sure. So Ben's not here. Jeremiah, come on up. QJ is coming on up. Trip. Y'all come right here to the stage, guys. Next on my list is number 12, Zayden Caldwell, played defensive end. Number 6, Quentin Claiborne Jr., played linebacker. Number 10, Ryan Coleman, quarterback. Number 73, Marlon Elgin Jr., offensive line. Number 76, Carter Evans, offensive line and defensive line. Number 11, Jason Strong Harris, running back. Number 4, Tayden Johnson, cornerback. Number 3, we call him Trey, Stanley Johnson III, running back and cornerback. Number 71, Joe Thompson, offensive line and defensive line. Number 7, Chase Lyles, running back and linebacker. Number 2, Mason Perry, wide receiver and cornerback. Number 74, Irvin Walker, offensive line and defensive line. Number 75, Arion Wright, offensive line and defensive line. Number 1, Chase Woodard, wide receiver and DB. Number 77, Jacarvi Armstrong, offensive line. And number 7, Chase Mobley, the defensive end. We can go ahead and get our coaches up now too. Tyler Gregory, Jalen Robinson as well. I just want to say great job, guys. It has been a pleasure to watch this team play and develop. Fairfield County is proud of you. And I would certainly like to thank Fairfield County Council and our administration for their support of these young athletes and their program. As a special thanks, I have provided district champion shirts for both council and administration. Thank you all so very much. Maybe we'll be doing this after basketball season. Can you fit us all in, G?
Still going out. Next, we are down to 6C, which is Project Bedrock Capital Concrete Presentation. If we could have Mr. John W. Shealy Jr. to please come forward. And I apologize. What's the other gentleman's name?
This is Jim Ryder. Jim is our Vice President of Operations at Capital Concrete,
Okay.
and glad to have him. But
I apologize for not recognizing you.
that's all right. We sometimes show up incognito. But Chairman Pauly, esteemed council members, other county officials, and the numerous guests who are here tonight, we appreciate the opportunity to be with you and to talk a little bit about what Project Bedrock represents and what we are attempting to accomplish in Fairfield County since we started this process and discussed it roughly 4 to 5 months ago and initially contacted your economic development members. Capital Concrete is the name behind Project Bedrock, and we are a family-owned business, but our management team, consisting of our 5 senior managers, have a little over 125 years experience in construction materials. We are a concrete company, sometimes confused and called a cement mill, but we're not. We're a concrete company. Cement's one of our raw material ingredients. But since we started dealing with Ann and Holly several months ago, I think we've outlined many of our plans and what we would like to accomplish and how much we would like to be a good corporate citizen in Fairfield County and create some what we believe to be good paying jobs, some tax base, and some growth opportunity for the county and for capital. With that, we've detailed to Ann the amounts of our investment previously, the numbers of jobs. I think you've been privy to that under Project Bedrock project namesake from the Department of Commerce. But we would like to talk just a little bit and to answer any questions if there are some, because occasionally there are questions about our industry's compliance and dust and water and pollution and things of that type. We run 4 concrete plants currently. Our most recent plant was just opened in Batesburg about less than 30 days ago. The steps that we've taken, I believe, are far above those mandated by either federal, state, or DHEC standards, including contemplation of and a commitment to utilize a central dust collection system that's 99.4% retentive of any fugitive dust particles that would leave the property. That's far and away in excess of what DHEC and the typical bag houses would have in our industry. By the way, that's about a $100,000, $80,000 piece of equipment and approximately $25,000 worth of installation. But we would commit to do that if we are approved to become a corporate citizen for Fairfield County. Our stormwater runoff is minimized also through the presence of an existing stormwater pond, but we also would build concrete weir pits where all of our stormwater and processed water would be captured, and over 90% of that would be retained and utilized as gray water in process used in the batching process for the manufacture of concrete. We truly believe that some folks misunderstand our industry, what a concrete batch plant does to operate, and how a modern concrete plant complies with federal, state, and local standards to avoid any of the charges that get leveled from a pollution, typically either dust or stormwater. We think that we've come up with a plan that's detailed in the literature that we've previously sent in under Project Bedrock to the Department of Commerce and to your economic development folks. But we would welcome any questions, but we would really welcome the opportunity to be a good corporate citizen in Fairfield County. If there are questions, we'll be happy to entertain them, but we look forward to working with you all, and thank you for the opportunity to be present.
Any questions from council members?
I do.
Ms. Green.
Yes, thank you so much for addressing some of the concerns that have been expressed by our citizens, essentially those regarding pollution. And I think that it's very important as corporate citizens that we really address some of the concerns that the citizens have. And thank you so much for doing that.
Yes, ma'am. Other questions? I'll be happy to entertain them and or tell you about some of our other plants and their proximity to nearby residential neighborhoods and what we've done successfully to date that have resulted in 0 complaints from neighbors.
Ms. Swearingen.
I have a couple of questions. How close are you to a neighborhood within your?
I don't know the exact, but we're proposing that we would like to enter into the Walter Brown Commercial Park. You're talking about in this instance or others?
No, I'm talking about in other instances where you are now.
At one of our plants in Lexington County, when we built our plant there 17 years ago, we intentionally left a stand of pine trees because we were immediately adjacent. Our side boundary on that plant also is a side boundary on a large neighborhood of about 400 homes, and the upscale price points in the $300,000 to $500,000 price points. We intentionally left those trees as a buffer. We built the plant away from those. We also put in the same type of central dust collection equipment. We've never had a single complaint from neighbors regarding fugitive dust leaving our property.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, because I've had calls about people afraid of the dust in the air. So 0 being no dust, 10 being you can't breathe. Where are you in there with your new stuff?
Central dust collection equipment, that's again about 10 times more than is required by DHEC and under the Clean Air Act. You're 99.4% efficient, and less than 0.6% leaves the facility or leaves the actual loading station. Much of that immediately falls to the ground and doesn't even get carried by air to outside of the boundaries of the property.
So you've had no complaints from the
No, ma'am.
place there that's really close to
Yeah,
you?
there's 400 homes in the $400,000 to $500,000 range with no complaints from neighbors.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for sharing this information.
ma'am.
Maybe it will clarify some
Sure.
people that had some concerns about it. Thank you.
Yeah, the one in Lexington, you're talking about this close to all those homes. How close would you say it is?
50 yards.
Okay, close.
Also, I'd like to add, our office is located at that location. So we are part of that neighborhood every single day, both of us. And we are involved with the residents actually we ship concrete to some of the homes there. So, I mean, it is a neighborly relationship, and they would complain if there was dust. It is as close as you could get.
They're literally 50, 60 yards away maximum.
I just got one question. If you can explain on a normal day, the operations that's going on at the plant, what's going on in a normal day?
Sure. A lot of folks mischaracterize cement and concrete the same thing. Cement sidewalk, that's technically a misnomer. Cement is the paste, the powder of roughly talcum powder consistency when weighed up and combined with a little bit of fly ash occasionally, which is the residue from a coal-fired electric station, which is getting less utilized because of coal stations being on the way out. But anyway, cement, sand, stone, water, and a little bit of chemicals get weighed up in finite commercial weighing scale systems are then fed into the truck, and the mixing actually occurs in the truck. So once those 4 or 5 constituent raw materials are entered into the truck, 100 revolutions by definition, by DOT requirements, it changes, and all of that is batched into a mixture that now changes and is concrete. Concrete's the most widely used material, construction or otherwise, in the world. But no project of any type of construction ever gets built without concrete. But trucks would be weighed up, would be batched, and then would go to the job site, generally multiple times a day, 3 to 4 times a day per truck. So another way to look at it is we're really a glorified trucking company with specialized equipment and a perishable product that has about a 90-minute life cycle before it perishes and is unusable. Hence the need to be where future growth is going to occur, and we believe that Fairfield County will see some growth in the near future and would probably be benefited by having some of that revenue kept inside the county, and that's why we're looking and believe we could locate here, be good corporate citizens, benefit the county, and certainly a little bit to ourselves.
I just want to thank y'all for taking your time out and coming up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for having us, and again, we look forward to being a good corporate citizen.
Thank you.
Next, we are down to opioid update. Mr. Vernon Kennedy, Behavioral Health Services Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council and administration. Thank you all for allowing me to be able to come and share with you all a little bit about the Fairfield Opioid Response Team, and particularly the funding that we received through you all through the South Carolina Opioid Recovery Fund. So just want to share with you as a little bit of information about that. Just know that Fairfield Behavioral Health Services works very hard with many different partners in our community to try to curtail all substance use disorders in our community. Particularly this particular issue, opioid use, has been a major issue, not only just in Fairfield County, but in South Carolina. And so this team was formed probably about 3 years ago to try to address that issue and really curtail any major overdoses or deaths in our county that many of our partnering neighboring counties have been seeing. So primarily the opioid response team is in place to collectively reduce the impact of opioids and stimulant overdoses and deaths in Fairfield County. And I say stimulants because oftentimes stimulant use is also associated with opioid use when you find it, in particular those who have overdosed or even died. And so that's what our main focus is. Just to answer the question about what have we been doing in Fairfield County, or particularly with this particular funding, a lot of things have happened. A lot of successes have happened, and just want to share a little bit of that. We've had overwhelming success in 6 of the 8 objectives that we submitted to you all, that was actually submitted to the South Carolina Opioid Recovery Fund. Overwhelming success. I mean, we've pretty much have met all of those criteria. There are 2 in particular that we are having some improved successes on, but because of some things out of our control, we have not been able to really get that done as effectively as we wanted to, but they are improving, and we certainly will continue to work on that. One of those involves doing the COPE runs in our community. COPE stands for Community Outreach and Paramedicine Education. If you remember, that is a program that was started by EMS with Maggie Ferguson, that involves having not only EMS staff, but also staff from my office, particularly peer support staff, and a member of one of the law enforcement divisions, depending on the jurisdiction where the client or the particular person lives. The purpose is to really go out to the most recent opioid overdose survivors to really provide some sort of emergency care to them, or even substance abuse care and or referrals. And also the main purpose is if they need that service on the spot, they will provide that, or they will make connections to a particular entity for them to receive that. One of the main goals out of that is also to make sure that those folks get to our office for treatment of substance use disorder, particularly opioids, or any sort of recovery services. In some cases, we've actually had to send folks to detox when they've gone out, and so it is a very important service, a very needed thing that we've done. So we're working to improve that as we continue to work as well. We've conducted 5 prescription drug take-back events throughout the county. A lot of those have done with health fairs. We've done some at the football teams, particularly at Fairfield Central High football game, as well as Richard Wynn Academy. We've done some take-back events there where folks can bring in their unused or expired medications, particularly pills, to us so that they can be safely disposed. And when we have those events, we have to have a law enforcement staff member with us, and thankfully, as I said, we have partnerships with both law enforcement divisions, with Fairfield County Sheriff's Office as well as Winsburg Public Safety. We've also purchased and distributed over 198 prescription drug lock boxes where folks can put their medication in the box and have them safely cared for at their home or wherever they choose to store them. We've distributed those through events as well. We've designed and distributed over 4,000 pieces of literature on opioids and or stimulants throughout the county in many different ways. We've published several articles, billboards. Hopefully you've seen some of those being advertised on the digital billboard up here by the old Fairfield Memorial Hospital, as well as we've sent out what they call every door direct mailings to residents' homes, businesses, and or P.O. boxes, again, all to get the information out there to educate the public about the dangers of opioids and or stimulants and where they can get help for, particularly if they need Narcan. Narcan is that life-saving antidote for reversing an opioid overdose, letting them know about how they can get that, which is through our office. We've trained several entities, particularly our first responders offices, on the services that we provide in our community, particularly with our office, the services that we provide in terms of substance abuse treatment and recovery services. We've also sent first responders and some of our staff to trainings, national and local trainings, national training, particularly one that was in Charleston earlier in November. It's called the National Emerging Drug Trends Training. Again, these trainings are very important so that we can learn the most latest information that there is about not only just opioids, but any other substances, because they're always evolving. There's so many different things that's always coming up, and we try to make sure that our team has that information as they're out there working and try to curtail these overdoses and deaths. We designed and distributed referral cards because it's really important. Over the last 3 years, we've been working a lot and doing a lot of prevention work in our communities with marketing materials, take-back events, but it's really extremely important that we close the gap in getting people who we identify as having opioid overdoses or any sort of substance use disorder, getting them in for treatment and referral. And so we designed a referral card together where first responders get that card, they come in contact with someone, they identify someone, they can fill that card out, put their name on it so we know which entity made that referral, and those folks can come to us. So we're just trying to really make sure we close that gap of prevention and treatment. We purchased the Narcan vending machine that was installed at the Fairfield County Detention Center, and we certainly appreciate the county administration for working with us to get that done. Again, just trying to get Narcan into the hands of as many homes as we possibly can, because it's so important, life-saving. When someone experiences an overdose where they are intentionally using opioids to misuse them, or someone that has had an accident or taken too many by mistake, it can happen. But the bottom line is Narcan is that life-saving drug that everybody needs to have on hand. Otherwise, minutes really do count in terms of saving someone's life in that regard. And we've seen a lot of cases where it has been not just only intentional use, but just mistakenly taking too many that you forgot that you've already taken in terms of prescription pain pills. And then lastly, we've, as a distributor, we are designated, my office is designated as the community distributor. That's something that was put in place by the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services. There's many different entities that can become that community distributor, but as a community distributor of Narcan, we are able to provide that Narcan to many different folks free. Those who, particularly our clients, those who have, who are concerned citizens, or those who may be caregivers who are may be around someone that might be at risk for an opioid overdose. As I said, it's extremely important for us to have this. And not only that, we've hired a full-time. We used to have a part-time. The work is just continuously involved in so much, it requires someone that can be with us full-time to get this work done, because that particular full-time person that we have, in particular, I've hired Mr. William Ankrum. He's back here with me. But they manage all of what I'm talking about. We meet on a monthly basis as a team. We look at different reports, and we try to decide on what are our hot spots in our communities. And we have identified hot spots. I'll tell you, for the last 3 years, the hot spots have been Winsboro, Ridgeway, and Great Falls. And we watch that, we look at the trends from all 3 years and determine, based on those hot spots, where do we need to put prevention efforts in, and that's what we do. And I'll tell you, as of November, December, when we had our report, we looked at the November report, Winsboro, Ridgeway, and Great Falls in that order, but Great Falls did not become the third one. It actually became Blackstalk. So Blackstalk is another area, and we try to put information in all these areas, but Blackstalk has risen to the third hotspot in our community. So all of this work is extremely important for us to do, and we continuously need your support to get this done, and even more support, to the point where we have also applied for the discretionary grant, or getting ready to apply for the discretionary grant with the South Carolina Opioid Recovery Fund, because we know we need to do more. We know we need more funding to get it done. We know we need to increase our capacity to get it done, as I said, to get people in for treatment and to make sure that we are providing the best training for our folks who are working in this effort. So we have a lot of work that we have done, but a lot more that needs to be done. And certainly I'll stop there. There's a lot to be said, but if you have any questions, I'll certainly take those at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Ms. Green?
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
I would just like to know the severity of the opioid crisis here in Fairfield County. How many deaths have we had, and how many people do we have in recovery?
So at our office, we see probably in new admissions, we probably get about 200 new admissions every year. And I'll be quite honest, the number one issue that folks come to our office for is still alcohol. People don't realize, but alcohol still is a drug. It still is the number one issue. Despite hearing so much about opioids in our country, in our state, alcohol is still the number one reason people enter substance abuse treatment facilities across this country. So that is the number one. Opioid use, we probably see maybe about, it probably makes up about maybe 10 or 12% of our population now. And I say now because prior to 2017, when the governor declared South Carolina being an opioid epidemic in our state, we were not getting that many folks in our office who had or presented with an opioid use disorder. However, we learned that there was a lot of opioid doses that was occurring, which prompted the need for us to really form this partnership with the Fairfield Opioid Response Team, with EMS, the coroner's office, and many others that I'll tell you about in a moment. And so prior to that, it only made up about 2% of our population at our office. And so it has risen some because of work that we're doing in the community, and we continuously need to do that. But in terms of overdoses, we monitor that. As I said, we've been monitoring for the last 3 years, and really for the last 3 years, we've seen some good improvements in that. We've seen improvements in not only just the opioid overdoses, but let me stop there. Opioid overdoses, as well as some of the opioid arrests that we've had, the drug seizures that we get reports from law enforcement. So a lot of this work is really very impactful and really needed. The overdoses last year in 2021, 2022, we had about 114 overdoses. This year, as of November, we've had about 89 overdoses, which is good when you look at that. We're seeing it go down. As I said, a lot of that is going down. And hopefully it'll stay that way by the end of December because we do it on a calendar base. However, the deaths still low compared, any death is too many, but still low compared to some of our neighboring counties. We have had, compared to 2021 and 22, we had 5 deaths, but as of November, we've had 6 deaths in Fairfield County. So we have surpassed the number of deaths from last year, and we want to continue to keep that down, but it takes everyone to do it. As you hear, this is not just a one-person, one-entity effort. This is a joint effort that we all have to make sure that we are reminding our folks and reminding ourselves about how dangerous it is and what we need to do, and particularly in getting Narcan, and certainly those who have struggled with substance, particularly opioid use disorders, we have to start getting them in for treatment. And hopefully we can continue to keep them in treatment and see these results get even better. But we're not as bad as some of our neighboring counties, but it's bad enough for us to continue this work to keep doing.
Thank you, sir, for your hard work and your staff.
You're welcome, and I think I would be remiss if I didn't recognize some of our partners. It's so many, as I say, we can't do this by ourselves, but you know, with not only just my office, but Fairfield Sheriff's Office, Public Safety, EMS, Emergency Management, Fairfield Detention Center, Fairfield Fire Department, they've come on board to work with us, and of course we consider you all to be a partner as well as the day elders and the South Carolina Opioid Recovery Fund. And so there's a lot of different partners, and we're always looking for more to anybody that's going to help us curtail this work. But thank you all for your support, and if you have any other questions, a lot of this information is also on our website, and so you can get that information off there. But anything else you need, just let me know. Yep.
Next, we are down to item 6E, Teacher Village Update, Dr. J.R. Green, Superintendent of the Fairfield County School District. Mr. Green. And Dr. Surex.
Good evening, Chairman Pauly, members of the council. My name is J.R. Green, and I am Superintendent of Schools in Fairfield County. Before I give an update on the teacher housing initiative, I'd be remiss if I didn't take upon a personal privilege in acknowledging her absence, Dr. Tracy Swilly, who has been named the 2024 Secondary Principal of the Year in the state of South Carolina. I'd be remiss. You know, I had invited Dr. Swilly to join me here today, but she is traveling with the basketball team to Aiken. But this is something that this entire community should celebrate. I remember in 2020 when Shonda Jefferson was named the South Carolina Teacher of the Year, this council recognized her, and I would encourage this council to recognize Dr. Tracy Swilly as well, as she represents South Carolina at the national level as the Secondary Principal of the Year. The Teacher Housing Initiative has been quite the journey, starting in 2018. It's unbelievable that we have been on this journey so long, but we are finally coming to the end of the journey. And as you ride by the district office, you see all the construction that is going on. And so by the spring of the year, there will be houses to accommodate teachers in this community. I have said from the beginning that this potentially could be one of the most impactful recruitment and retention efforts, in addition to an effort to really spur economic development in this community. You'd have to be under a rock not to hear all about the struggles that districts are experiencing when it comes to recruiting qualified education professionals. I have heard from individuals from all over the country, Michigan to Illinois to California, you name it, people who are asking about this project here in Fairfield County because everyone is struggling with the ability to recruit highly qualified professionals. And we think that we have developed a model for what schools across this country will be able to replicate. Sue Rex is going to give a few details about the project relative to where it stands, and we welcome any questions that you may have after that. Dr. Rex.
Get this way down. I'm going to put my glasses on. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to provide all of the council members and residents this evening with an update regarding the building of the state's first residential community for educators, and one of the very first in the nation. This is one of the first concrete initiatives to address teacher housing in rural America. A brief outline. The Fairfield County School District established its first educational foundation, a 501c3, in 2018, with the primary mission of addressing retention and recruitment of teachers in Fairfield County. Dr. Green envisioned a residential community for teachers and other Fairfield educators, which led to a building planning process over the last few years. Our foundation received a gift of 22 acres of land from the School District Board of Trustees 3 years ago, and this land sits between the district office and the high school, of course on the 321 bypass. The engineering company, Civil Engineering of Columbia, was hired and has supported our mission since our inception, with surveys, permits, and lots of advice. We hired the infrastructure company, Upland Construction, out of Sumter, and they began site preparation this past summer in July. After completion, we will have 26 pads ready for vertical construction. Our hope is that the infrastructure will be completed in the next 6 weeks. The city will then come in to complete the electrical work, and True Vista will complete the internet services. Home building will be underway, we hope, by the end of January, with our home builder, Wade McGuinn Builders, out of West Columbia. In phase 1, we will build the first 16 homes. Our hope is that teachers will be able to move in by the end of this summer. All homes are 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. All appliances are provided. Educators will be renting homes on a yearly contract, and they must be employed by the district in order to continue to live in the village. At the current time, our foundation is interviewing property management finalists. Once a decision has been made, communication will then proceed with interested educators. Certified classroom teachers will receive first priority, with years of service being a first consideration. Our foundation will continue to seek additional grants in order to complete the remaining 10 pads. As you are aware, the initial money came from a settlement with Dominion Energy, and we received a $600,000 gift from the United Way of the Midlands. Our lending institution to complete this phase 1 is First Community Bank out of Columbia. In order to address the need for recruitment to our district, we have nurtured interest from several universities to have their senior students doing internships in Fairfield County. The University of South Carolina's College of Education has made a 3-year commitment to rent one of the homes. As additional homes are added in the years ahead, our hope is to include several other universities. Our foundation is busy at work all year long, providing funds for student scholarships and teacher grants. We truly appreciate the growing interest by businesses throughout Fairfield County for their support. Other school districts, as Dr. Green said, and various media outlets are interested in this initiative, and we expect this to accelerate at the national level in the coming months. We believe this initiative is an example of economic development for the city of Winsboro and for Fairfield County. Our foundation, which is made up of a board of 14 members, sends our sincere thanks to our county council for their support. Thank you for having us tonight, and we're open for questions.
These are comments. Mr. Robinson?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say I have a comment. I've been here, I guess, since the beginning with you. I saw the vision and saw the frustration with you, and I just want to say congratulations. So I do see the need for housing in the county, and keep pushing forward. So.
Thank you.
I certainly would like to congratulate you for the success that you've had so far, and I know that this will be a national model, so thank you so much for all the work you've put into this process.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We look forward to seeing it. Thank you. Now we are down to number 7, first public comment session. Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council. Don Goldbach.
I'm a little taller than Dr. Rex. She left. Good evening, Don Goldbach, District 2. First of all, on the agenda is an update on short-term rentals, and I want to say that I attended the meeting, the public meeting on November 29th, and that was a very interactive back and forth meeting between citizens and people within the county government. I want to congratulate Carter and her team of people that put together the outline for short-term rentals, and look forward to seeing the draft ordinance. But and I know Ms. Green had suggested that we need to see more of this. It was a very good back and forth, and I would agree with that. It was a very good, it exceeded my expectations before I walked through that door, so thank you for that. Another item on the agenda is the emergency ordinance 831 for purchasing 2 used ambulances. And I think this is something that's probably needed. But my first question is, do we have the EMS personnel to actually man these vehicles? And if not, what's our plan for effectively recruiting and hiring more of the people that we need? Second thing is, there's nothing in the ordinance about funding it or how much we might have to pay for it. I don't know if there's been some guidance given on the actual purchase of these vehicles, but it would be nice to know that, you know, we're looking out for our taxpayer dollars and have some kind of a ceiling, what we would expect to pay for such vehicles. I've never bought a used emergency vehicle, so I have no idea. But hopefully you all take that into consideration. And the other thing is regarding budgets and financing is the ongoing maintenance of these vehicles. Since they are used, they may require some more, maintenance. I don't know how that's all factored into the annual budgets, but something I would ask that you also be cognizant of. So, okay, thank you very much.
Jeff Schaefer.
Give me 1 second here before I get started. My printer wasn't working, so I got it on my phone. Good evening, Council. And before we start, I wish you all a happy and healthy New Year and Merry Christmas. Forgot what I was going to tell you. Okay, so we had a couple of subjects that we're going to talk about, but I noticed that you have now 3 paragraphs on the sign-up sheet. I better put my glasses on because I'm at that age where I can't read it. And now, in order to get up here and speak, there are rules of public comment. Fairfield County government welcomes public input during appropriate times at the county council meetings. Such input will be allowed at the time, place, and manner determined by the chair of the county council. as presiding officer. Persons wishing to speak must conduct themselves in the following manner. That's an important and interesting statement. Signing up, time to speak, yada yada, refrain from engaging in conduct or speech that seeks to disrupt. Why don't we just call this Schaefer rules? And I'll just be quiet, because that's what I intend to do anyhow. But we want to speak, people want to come up here and talk, and we have to talk about specific things that are on the agenda. So your agenda rules specifically states to speak about what's on the agenda, and that we're given 3 minutes. I have a minute and a half left. I'll really rush through this. I want to remind the council that Fairfield County bylaws require the county council to abide by Robert's Rules of Order. And in your bylaws, it specifically states that you must publicly request a vote to make any changes to the agenda at a public open meeting. So, at the September 11th meeting this year, the second citizens' time of speaking was removed from the agenda. On September 25th, the speaker came up to this podium and asked for an explanation. Then on October 23rd, Councilmember Dan Ruff asked the question of relating to when we're going to get that reinstated for the second citizen's time to speak. And then Mr. Douglas Pauly admitted that he was the one who decided to remove it from the agenda. Freedom of speech is a serious constitutional right, as well as required at any governmental open meeting. I would ask you to reinstate the second time frame so that we may address the council with questions not related to the subjects that are on there, and rather we, the citizens, the taxpayers, want you, the people we elected to work for us, to answer our questions with common decency and common courtesy. And we look forward to you voting on that this evening and putting it back on the public agenda. And I want to thank you very much for your time.
Randy Bright.
Randy Bright, Ridgeway, District 1. I'm here to first talk about adding farmers market to your discussion, to your recommendations, to A&H taxes, to fund them, to grow them. And probably best said, coming from the North Carolina Cooperative, a farmers market can help a community create a robust local economy, provide the opportunity to buy fresh food in neighborhoods that otherwise lack a fresh food supply. Economists use the term multiplier effect to calculate the recycling effect of dollars spent at the market back into the local economy. In other words, it stays here. It doesn't go down to Walmart or Kroger's headquarters. Neighboring businesses also benefit from a thriving farmers market as shoppers are drawn to the area. And certainly, we need people to be drawn to Winnsboro. If you look at the statistics, something like nearly 9,000 farmers markets have grown and thrived throughout the United States. It's a trend. It's a 21st century trend that communities are recognizing the power of farmers markets all over the United States. And it's not just localized, it's not just rural, it's across the nation. Farmers markets have a great opportunity for the citizens to become engaged with the community, to engage other people in the community. It's so heavily invested in the economic growth of the nation. You're talking about billions of dollars being spent throughout the year in these some 8,000 to 9,000 farmers markets. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars used in the SNAP program through the farmers market, where people can get the right food at the right price that who most need it. And then, of course, our farmers market, like most farmers market, has the addition of local artisans to ply their trade, to grow the economy, to grow the community, and to offer many benefits. If there's one place that could use our money and our support, it's the farmers market, because it is a draw. It is a benefit to the community. That's the one place that can bind the community together and combine a draw outside of this community and keep the money in the community so we ensure that we have a robust multiplier effect cycle economy. Thank you.
No one else signed up to speak, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Roberts. Now we are down to item 8A, public hearings. A ordinance by Fairfield County Council authorizing the sale of certain real property in Fairfield County, South Carolina, and other related matters. We will open this hearing at 6:57. Anybody signed to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Don Goldbach.
Yes, Don Goldbach, District 2, still District 2. Mr. Shealy, thank you for sharing that information about your family-owned company, and congratulations on your success so far. I did a little research today and looked at the various plants that exist already in their company, Capital Concrete. He addressed the air quality to my satisfaction. I think 99.4% capture of particulate is a very good number. Still have some questions about stormwater runoff and stormwater management. I'd like to know that there will be a permit involved from DHEC on stormwater management. I'm sure there will be one for air quality. But I would also recommend, he gave us some good information about the neighbors that exist around the existing plants, but I would suggest that we trust and verify. Contact some of these neighborhoods near these plants, talk to the county council, maybe they have some information, maybe they've heard some things, to make sure that they are good neighbors. It sounds like they are, but again, I think in the immortal words of President Reagan, we need to trust and verify. So it would be good to have some new business come into town. The other thing that I don't know where this lot is. The ordinance that was sent around, it didn't show where this parcel of land is. So, the stormwater runoff, I would assume, could not get into Lake Watery. I would hope not. But the other point is the road traffic. We're talking, one truck makes 3 or 4 trips a day, I think I heard. How many trucks are there? Where are they going to be? Is it going to cause, congestion anywhere along the path where they typically go? What's it going to do to the roads? I mean, the roads are already in some less than adequate condition. So will that have a negative impact on our highways also? So just some things I hope the council takes into consideration before making a final decision. Thank you.
Jeff Schaefer.
Jeff Schaefer, District 4. I too would like to know, when we write an ordinance here and you state that the ordinance of Fairfield County Council authorizing a sale of certain real property in Fairfield County, why aren't we specifically putting down the exact address? Like Don just mentioned, we'd like to know exactly where it is, but that being said and already discussed, I'm just curious, are you taking the money from the sale of this property and using it so that the citizens can benefit? Like today, I drove by about a half a mile from my house on Colchester Road, another house burnt down to the ground. I don't think anyone was killed, but the house is gone. There's another house on another street that burnt a couple of weeks ago. We have more house fires and no firemen to come and address that. So I'm curious, given all that money going to be coming in, I presume, do we have a plan for it to go to the fire department? Thank you.
Randy Bright.
Randy Bright, Ridgeway, District 1. I too have many questions, like Jeff and Don, and I don't want to be redundant, so I'm not going to repeat their questions. But my biggest question is, why is this hearing just being held now, minutes before the vote? It should have been held the last meeting, so you'd have 2 weeks. Everybody's got a lot of questions. And why didn't we hold this hearing? In fact, why don't we do this, hold hearings 2 weeks before a final vote? You can always table the vote tonight for the next time. Well, I don't know, we don't meet for another month, but logically, you need all the facts and not just 5 minutes before you vote. And this is one example. There's a lot of citizens' questions. And of course, some of the questions were answered tonight. But again, that's just minutes before you guys vote and minutes before we have any idea to ask questions. A hearing should have been held a minimum of 2 weeks ago with this complicated issue. When you're talking about pollution, when you're talking about traffic, when you're talking about economic potential, when you're talking about people's homes and lives, you can't decide in 5 minutes, oh yeah, let's go. Some other questions besides why the hearing has been delayed this long, and I would hope you would table it, but you probably won't. What's going to be the net? What are the specific benefits? I heard good wages. What does that mean? Is that $10 an hour? Is that 20, 30, 40, 50? Exactly how much will this company pay our employees, our county employees? Will they concentrate on Fairfield first in their hiring? Will they promote and hire from within this county first? The other question is, how much exactly are we selling the property for? I haven't seen any of that. Is it a worthwhile deal for the county? Is it too much, too little? And then the other very important question is, what's the taxes going to be? How is it going to benefit the citizens? How much tax money will this bring in? What are they paying in taxes? If there's a deal, what is it? How long is it? What specifically? How much break do they get? So many specifics that we're just diving headfirst without all the facts. And if you got something different than we did in the letter from the clerk on the specifics, you don't know what's going on, not these answers to the questions. So you can't vote until you get answers to all these questions. Jeff, I, and many others have. Thank you.
No one else signed up, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. We close this public hearing at 7:04. Next, we are down to 8B, an ordinance by Fairfield County Council to amend ordinance number 815, establishing the operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July the 1st, 2023, and other matters related thereto. We open this hearing at 7:04 p.m.
Jeff Schaefer.
You need to get a little escalator there for me to get over here. I'm just a little confused. We write an ordinance number 815, it was written before, and now we're writing a new ordinance, 829. And the attorney gets paid for every ordinance that he writes, and so we're rewriting an ordinance that he already wrote. And in that ordinance, it's about amending the ordinance about a budget. And this really, I'm pretty well, as a businessman, understand when you have a budget, you have a time frame. And here we are coming into 2024, and we're talking about a budget that's commencing in the fiscal year of July 2023. That's almost 6 months late. And more importantly, with this budget and what's going to happen, what are we doing with the money in the budget? I see also that we got $1.5 million coming from another, that you want to move $1.5 million. Let me read that to you. And I'm wondering what you're doing with that money. You don't mention it in the agenda, and you don't tell us what you're doing with it. So I'm a little confused about certain things. I guess I'm a lot confused. Here it is, Resolution 2023-07, transferring up to $1.5 million to general funds previously approved by the Fairfield County Council, proposed for funding of construction for a speculative building. And I come up here often enough and I keep asking, When are we going to address the most important issue? When are we going to have a fire department, a police department, and an EMS that's fully loaded with employees and equipment and staffed properly? When is that going to happen? We have enough money here, and we're going through resolutions and selling properties and making money. I'm confused. I don't understand why we can't get that one very important issue done. When you look back at the end of this year and you ask yourselves, what did we accomplish for the citizens? Aside from the fact that the roads are falling apart all over the place, the county's not taking care of that either, but a lot of things need to be addressed, and we need to have this public kind of discussion, an open discussion. You don't have to agree with me, and I don't have to agree with you, but we can remain open, honest, and informative so that we all understand what's happening, why it's happening, and when it will get resolved. Because in my mind, we're not getting much done. So my question is, all this money, all this time, when will we have a functioning fire department, an EMS, and a police department? Thank you very much.
Randy Bright.
Randy Bright, Ridgeway, District 1. I agree with Jeff. As written, and also in the recap from the clerk, we show we're decreasing the budget, but it says we're increasing the budget, and actually it looks like it's what it looks like to me, and it's certain you couldn't discern that from what's written down here. At least in part, what we're trying to do is shift money from the county to the Chamber of Commerce so that we can have yet another position, this one, a tourist minister in charge of tourism. Now, I can't judge if that's going to be a good thing or not because there's no details. What is that tourist minister supposed to do? What are their job duties? What are their goals? Is it their job to bring an extra 100,000 people to visit the county every year? Is it going to be their job to improve our current tourist attractions? Is it going to be their job to get more tourist attractions? How can we create a position shifting council monies over with what we have no goal of what it's going to do? We know specific goal. Yeah, obviously we want more visitors and more income, but what specifically can you do? You know, if you know, the work environment I was in, you had specific goals, monetary and other goals that you were reaching. But you can't create a position without having goals for it or having purpose for it. Just creating a position and, oh, we'll figure it out later. Well, how do you hire if you figure it out later? How do you plan for it? How do you plan additional resources for it if needed? What community leaders and businesses are you going to incorporate with this? It should be a plan. I'm not against the position. If it's done right, it may be a good investment. But it's not off to a right start with a confusing ordinance, with no details on what the goals are, what the plans are, where it's going, how it's going. And that'd be nice to have a job that you had no goals and you're not held accountable for anything. You don't create a position first and then think of the goals and duties later. It's just backwards, and it doesn't work this way. Again, it may be a right thing to do with the tourism, but not having a plan is a plan to fail. Thank you.
No one else signed up to speak, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. We close this hearing at 7:11 p.m. Next, we are down to number 9, ordinance, resolutions, and orders. Item A, third and final reading, ordinance number 827, an ordinance by Fairfield County Council authorizing the sale of certain real property in Fairfield County, South Carolina, and other related matters.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and properly seconded. Open for discussion. Mr. Morgan, if you could provide what available information that you can.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, members of council, you have before you this evening ordinance number 827 on third and final reading. We previously had brought this ordinance before this council under the South Carolina Department of Commerce, its project name of Project Bedrock. On third and final reading, we are allowed as the county pursuant to South Carolina Freedom of Information Act, provide the name of the industry that's coming into Fairfield County. And as you heard earlier this evening from Mr. Shealy, that is Capital Concrete. The purchase sale agreement that is also included in your agenda packet contains a lot of the details specific to the sale of the certain parcel of property. For purposes of, for the public, that's 355 Commerce Boulevard. It is in the Walter Brown's 2 Industrial Park. The county is selling that property at approximately $15,000 an acre. There is already in a pre-existing stormwater basin and runoff facility there that will, as we've already been working very closely with Capital Concrete to make sure that that is utilized, and that way there's no further impact to the environment or the community for any of the operations that take place there. So that's what we have before council this evening. That's the extent of the information that I can provide as it relates to this particular sale. No, I just thought I saw Ms. Swearingen.
Ms. Swearingen.
One question that was addressed, do we know what the tax revenue will be from the sale of these acreage?
I do not have that information. I'm not sure if I don't think administration does. So at this time, I'm not able to answer that question.
Mr. Roseborough.
When I checked with the Fairfield County Assessor's Office, that lot is showing 6 acres. And
what we have done, Mr. Roseborough, is that stormwater basin basically takes up the last 2 acres of that parcel, and in order for the county to be able to have full control over the runoff of the entirety of the park, the county's is going to retain ownership in that. And then if you look in the purchase sale agreements, we're entering into negotiated agreements with not only Capital Concrete, but also other park users, so that way we can come up with a unified maintenance plan. So that way it takes the burden, the financial burden necessarily off of the county, and works with our corporate partners to make sure that everybody's, kind of paying their fair share.
thank you.
Mr. Roof.
And as I understood it, they did not ask for any tax incentives in this deal.
Correct. That's not the purpose of they just want to come in and make sure that they're getting access to a quality piece of land that's in the county, and obviously they can work and go forward with the citizens in order to get those individuals hired on board.
Mr. Shealy, I hate to put you on the spot, but 2 questions for you that maybe didn't get addressed during your presentation. One, do you have a number or range of how many employees you expect to employ?
Mr. Chairman, I think in the first initial 5 years, we contemplated 17 to 20 employees as to the average wages that was questioned earlier. Initially, these jobs would be available around, for hourly employees, $26 an hour. Salaried employees, management employees would be substantially more than that.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. On third and final reading, ordinance number 827. Next, we are down to item B, second reading, ordinance number 829, an ordinance by Fairfield County Council to amend ordinance number 815, establishing the operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of Fairfield County for the fiscal year commencing July the 1st, 2023, and other matters related thereto.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Discussion. I would like to put on the record, and I told Ms. Johnson this earlier, and I will tell the rest of council, I think once we go through the budget process, which is a long process, and we establish a budget, I don't want to be amending the budget all throughout the year. Once you establish a budget, you stay with the budget, and that's what we need to do. I will make exceptions for anything emergency related that comes up that we might need to address at that time, but to amend budgets back and forth, it just creates a headache for our administrative team, for our council, for citizens to keep up with the budget. I just don't like amending it. In this particular situation, I will say at the time that we did our budget, Mr. Dylan Pullen was not the chamber president. He was coming on board being the interim president. He came in, saw some things that needed to be done, and that's the reason for the amending of the budget. So I'm okay with it at this time, but in the future will not be in favor of amending budgets unless it's just absolutely necessary for the operation of the county. I will call, if it's okay with Ms. Johnson, unless she wanted to say something, Ms. Williams.
Members of council, so we did receive a request from the Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce for an additional $70,000 in the state hospitality and accommodation tax funds. This is the money that the county receives from the state based off of hospitality and tourism revenue. The Chamber of Commerce does currently receive a combined $89,506 direct allocation of state accommodation and hospitality tax funds. That's usually done every year during the county's budgeting process. But the request for additional funds is for the Chamber of Commerce to hire a Director of Tourism and Community Relations, develop a Finding Fairfield Tourism Promotion, a Fairfield County Visitors Guide, Fairfield County Relocation Guide, and also for the development of a Fairfield County Visitor Center. So the Chamber of Commerce did provide, and it's one of the amendments to your briefing document that shows a breakdown of how they would use these funds. But if you do have any specific questions, we do have the Chamber President, Mr. Dylan Pullen, here, who may be able to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Pullen, when you come forward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. If I can take just a moment of your time and kind of explain to you where we're at with this. For many years, the Chamber of Commerce has kind of become a catch-all, be-all for both the small business development and a center of tourism for Fairfield County. And so we want to do our jobs effectively and efficiently. And in order to do that, we almost have to separate the two within the same building. And so what we will be doing is Ms. Tracy, who is our administrative assistant now, will focus on chamber membership and things like that. And this will provide us, in part, the funding we need to hire somebody dedicated towards tourism. We have worked closely with the organizations like OED in the past who provide us tourism, but we need to ramp up our marketing campaign for beautiful towns like Ridgeway, Jenkinsville, and Winsboro in order to make things like the visitors guides, in order to advertise our events, keep up with social media, in order to make sure that we're contacting all the papers and keeping our citizens, even here at home, informed when we have events. I think one of the most popular complaints that we get is, well, I didn't know that was happening this weekend. And that takes a lot of time in order to spread the word in a community as small as this. And so this would give us the funding to make sure that we're doing our jobs effectively. The tourism director is only a small part of this piece. The other part of this piece is the tourism center or the visitor center. And so the chamber is in negotiations now on finding a new home that is ADA compliant. One of the other popular complaints we get about being in the town clock is that most people who are older cannot come up those steps. The office is also not really conducive for having a visitor center. It is too small. It does not have the privacy that we need while we're talking with small businesses. And so we are looking at finding a new office space that would have plenty of advertising promotions for the Railroad Museum, for the different Lake Wateree, Lake Monticello, for some of the amenities that we have to offer here, our bed and breakfasts, our hotels, our recreational activities such as Carolina Adventure World, things like that, so that when you come into Fairfield County, it's a good representation about who we are, and I'll be happy to answer any questions as it regards this appropriations request.
Mr. Pullen, I don't know if the citizens were privy to the paperwork I received. I was hoping they would be, but on your $70,000 request, can you kind of just go through the different numbers? Because they hear $70,000, and I think they think that one person is going to make $70,000. So can you kind of break down what the $70,000 come from?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. So this money would be, of course, it's amending the appropriations bill for the fiscal year of July of 2023 to June of 2024. So these funds would be spent in this fiscal year, concluding in July of 2024. So $20,000 of it would be for the tourism director's salary to carry them through half the year. $5,000 of it would be our Finding Fairfield promotion. So we would have a separate website dedicated for the tourism department of Fairfield County. Finding Fairfield is a slogan that Mr. Stevens created when he was the president that seems to work well. So we are going to own the domain name www.findingfairfield.com, and which will be our tourism website. All of our businesses, all of our amenities, all of our tourism attractions will be there. We'll also have an app that coincides for the younger generation who uses apps for everything. That will coincide with the websites. And we'll also be doing a lot of filming and producing to highlight some of the local activities we have. These funds include $5,000 doing our visitors guides. That was very popular. That was just done this year. We were able to order a couple of thousand of those, but every year they have to be updated as new businesses move in, new accommodations move in. And so it would be updating that visitors guides with a marketing firm out of Rock Hill and then having them printed, and then as well as the relocation guide, getting that back into production. That's for citizens. They go to real estate agents. As people move into Fairfield County, we want to give them a comprehensive guide of welcome to Fairfield County. We're glad you're here. Here are some of the great things that you can be a part of, some of the services that you need, and some of the resources you may need. And then you see the budget request in front of you, $38,000 for the visitor center. A lot of this is just the initial startup fund of it because we have to purchase furnishings, we have to make videos, we have to purchase televisions, and we want to really do this right. I've reached out to the Carolina Association of Chamber of Commerce executives, and so most chamber presidents belong to this association. I've got a comprehensive list of all the other chambers, and I've even visited some of them or talked with some of them, such as York County, such as Chester County, such as Rock Hill, all of which have their own visitor center, which coincides with their chambers, so that I could look at them and, take some ideas back and say, this is what we want our visitor center to look like. You see them in bigger towns. We think of visitor centers, we think of the coast or the mountains, and we want something like that here for the visitors of Fairfield County. And that's a more detailed report of where these funds will be spent.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about when all these people move in here, we don't have anybody moving yet. We don't have anybody building yet. We've only got one person that we're finally going to get them, one company finally going to get them in here. Why do we need this rush? I can't agree with, we need to do it right now. I don't think that we're there yet. We don't have them coming yet. I hope they're going to come, but they're not here yet. I don't see anybody running in.
Well, in only $1,500 of this request goes to that relocation guide, but houses are put on the market and sold pretty quickly. And so though it's a very small portion, I would agree, and we hope to have a housing developer come in and expand the people coming in, but that's most of these funds is going to the local realtors as houses come up for sale and they are sold, and then those people are moving into Fairfield County. That small population, but I agree we need more of them.
I guess my question pretty much was taking a look at why this wasn't prorated in terms of 6 months has passed already, and we only have 6 months here. But will you go over that again? Because I think you were saying that it's startup money that you're trying to have to get the staffing and all in place. Could you kind of review that again for me?
Yes, ma'am. So, of course, I just came in as chamber president the 1st of October. By then, the budget season had well come and gone by then, and so this was one of the initial priorities that we had coming into the chamber was to revitalize tourism. Ms. Terry Vickers, who I served under previously and learned from, really had a hand in tourism in Fairfield County. And so coming in, of course, that's part of why this is a budget amendment, because I wasn't here for the initial budget process. But this fund's only carries from January till July, because it's a budget amendment to the fiscal year that we are currently in. That's why the 6-month date of somewhere around January, by the time that if the council would approve it on third reading, then we would get the funds in order to make the visitor center. And these funds would carry us through July. Yes, ma'am. But we would form the visitor center in the meantime, and we do have companies willing to partner with us to make that happen, to make this a really, really nice facility.
So the 70,000 is only a half a year, so it would be 140,000 for a whole year?
No, ma'am, because some of these funds would not be recurring. Some of these funds are just a one-time appropriation, such as some of that startup fund for the visitor center, such as the relocation guide, things of that nature. That's just a startup. So some of these funds would not be recurring.
Mr. Pullen, I just want to say, excuse me, that I thank you and I appreciate you. I've known you for a long time. In anything that you're involved with, you have a very hardworking dedication to. And I see this, and I operate a business in Blythewood, excuse me, and I see Blythewood Chamber of Commerce it seems like every weekend is having something at Doco Manor, and I hate to say that we're behind them, but I would love to see that many events in Fairfield County bringing tourism here as they do in Blythewood. And I know that every day they're steady having people walk in their door and asking what's next on their agenda that they're going to have in Blythewood. And I want to see the same kind of growth in Fairfield County. And I know that you're the person that can do that with the dedication that you have. I was up there recently talking with you at the Chamber of Commerce, and two things I noticed is the small space, which I don't think was attractive for anyone. But then the second thing I noticed that was very disturbing to me was the ceiling falling in. And I mean, I just don't think that is any kind of attraction to bring somebody here when we got a Chamber of Commerce in a building that looks the way it looks. I definitely think that we need to provide a nicer building for people to see, for y'all to work out of, and to promote tourism. Scout is coming to Blythewood, no doubt that we are going to see growth, and we need to be ready for it before it gets here. So I appreciate what you do and what your staff does to help with tourism here in Fairfield County. Ms. Johnson can you kind of go over where this money would come from if we was decide to approve this funding?
Sorry, the source of funding would come from the state accommodation tax funds. It's tourism-related money. It already has a fund balance in it. Taking into consideration what was budgeted for fiscal year 2024, it would leave approximately $220,000 already in that account prior to the $70,000 if it was requested. This does not include any type of revenue in the account because at year end a calculation is done. These monies come from the state. At the end of the year a calculation is done, and normally close to $100,000, but maybe a little bit less goes into that account.
So what you're saying, this is not coming out of our general fund or something? It
No,
comes
ma'am,
from the
it's
state?
not. It's not from your general fund account. Tourism-related and tourism promotion monies have to be kept separate, accounted for in a separate fund. And there's stipulations on how this money can be used. And in these particular funds, it has to be for tourism promotion and tourism-related. So this would come out of the tourism account if approved.
Not Fairfield County tax money?
No.
Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say, you know, when we first brought in the idea of the H-tax and the taxes, the whole idea was for tourism. We can go back as far as 2018. The idea was to, I think, bring it towards the interstate. That's what I remember. I do a lot of traveling, and from my perspective, we are far behind. You know, we have a lot of counties that are, in my opinion, not as fortunate to have as much money as us, but they have welcome centers, gateways, as as we call it. But you know, change is coming, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not. So we need to, in my opinion, I think we need to come up with the times. And whether I like it or not, or you like it, I just think we need to do the right thing. So, and support this gentleman. So.
Mr. Roof.
Yeah, I agree. My hardware store, I've been a member of the chamber for a long, long time, and fully support it. And I don't think we can get caught left behind. I think we need to be ahead, and I think Dylan will do. I know you do a great job, but I think we need to be aggressive and look for opportunities to bring in tourism and industry, and I think you can do a great job at that. And so I really think we need to support this.
You know, Mr. Pullen, I don't want.
Let me just say this. I do agree with the chair. It is a time and a place for finances. I do agree with that.
And Mr. Pullen, you know, I want to make sure I correct this, that our chamber does an outstanding job. And it might have sounded like that I said Blythewood is way ahead of us, but I don't want to take no offense to that. If you could tell us how many events the Fairfield County Chamber of Commerce do a year.
Sure. 18 major events is what we have on our calendar for now. And I can assure you, coming into the office, the staff and I are working diligently to revamp every single event that we play a part in, whether that's some of the smaller events, combining them with larger events. I can tell you Rock Around the Clock is our most popular. This year is the 25th year of Rock Around the Clock, and I can assure you it's our priority to make it the biggest and best Rock Around the Clock you've ever seen. That, partnering with Ridgeway in District 1 for the Pig on the Ridge event, different events like that, the Wings and Wheels Air Festival that we play a major part in with the Aeronautics Commission, and then getting involved in some events that are taking place all around the county, not just focused on Winsboro, such as the Blair Day that's been going on for years, seeing how we can support them. But 18 major events that we're hoping to revamp. Blythewood does get a significant portion of local and state A&H taxes like this that help fund a lot of those major events because they are quite expensive. But I agree that we are behind and we don't have a day to waste. And I think that this is the first step to get us there.
Well, I appreciate it. And I wanted you to clarify that because every event in Blythewood might not be a chamber event. I might assume that it is, but it might not be. So I wanted to make sure that I stand corrected on doing that. Do you have a location already in mind for the new center?
We do. We're in negotiatings now. I would be happy to have those conversations with members of council who may be interested. If you were to give it second reading before third reading, just not at liberty to discuss it publicly just because of the negotiations and we have our board we're accountable to. But I would be happy to tell you we put out bids to different locations, but we've got one prime location. For those, our building now is basically one very tiny office, one large room. There is no privacy. This building is quite larger, and we would be renting it at the moment with a really tight lease on it that we could renew it if we were to go with that location. It's a lot more space for us to designate towards a visitor center and the chamber office space.
All right. Any other council members? Any other discussion? All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Did you have something? Okay. Let the record reflect 7-0 on second reading, 829. Yeah, we did. Yeah, let the record reflect 7-0, ordinance 829. Now we're down to 9C, first reading by title only, ordinance number 830, an ordinance of the County Council of Fairfield County approving an application to the Central Midlands Council of Government for certain amendments to the 208 Water Quality Management Plan for the Central Midlands region, a supplement to a intergovernmental sewer infrastructure agreement and other matters related thereto. This is by title only, no discussion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. There's no discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0, first reading, ordinance 830. Now we are down to item D, emergency ordinance number 831, an emergency ordinance by Fairfield County Council authorizing the use of emergency procurement procedures and the purchase of 2 used ambulances so as to provide for the safety of the citizens of Fairfield County and other matters related thereto.
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve.
Second it.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Can we have some clarification on this emergency ordinance from Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of council, we're going to tag team this particular emergency ordinance. I'll start off with emergency ordinance number 831, South Carolina Code annotated 4-9-130. That's part of the South Carolina Home Rule Act. Provides that county councils such as this council can pass or adopt emergency ordinance, quote, to meet public emergencies affecting life, health, and the safety of the people, otherwise the citizens of Fairfield County. And I know Ms. Johnson's going to talk a little bit more about the necessary elements of that particular emergency. But that's the basis for bringing this before council, is because in the opinion of the administration and who's asking for this ordinance to be passed, that there is an emergency as such. This ordinance provides for council to make a finding to that effect, and also to allow for council to utilize the emergency procurement, in as much as procurement normally would require for the, going out, putting items out for bid, et cetera. Because this is an emergency, and because it's an emergency ordinance, it can pass with just one reading and one reading only. Likewise, the ordinance authorizes the administration to utilize those emergency procurement procedures to allow to go out because of the emergency, to just basically go out and use best efforts to come back with the best pricing on the particular units that the administration wishes to purchase. That's a little bit of the legal background. Obviously, I can answer any questions if anybody has them, but as for the specifics, let Ms. Johnson speak to those.
Council, we're asking for 2 used ambulances. Our EMS vehicles are deteriorating. They're breaking down. We've had 1 vandalized. 2 of them are very old units. The manufacturer has closed. He's no longer in business. So it's going to be hard to actually repair these vehicles. And we also have some in the shop. Some have been in there for 2 weeks or more. They have to be re-inspected before they go out on the road again. So we have Tim Martin here to give more details about this. We want the 2 used ambulances. We're estimating maybe about $140,000 each, hopefully, but there is $99,000 in insurance refund proceeds that we are used to offset that amount. So we're looking at maybe $200,000, maybe a little bit less. So, Mr. Martin.
Ms. Johnson, I apologize, and if the council is okay with it, I would like for him to take a seat, and I want to apologize to the Boulware family for having to sit here this long. I wish we would have moved it up, and if it's at the will of council, I would like to postpone the EMS and go ahead and do Mr. Boulware, if that's okay with the will of council. Okay. We are going to we're going to postpone that for a few minutes. Move to item E, resolution number 2023-06, a resolution by Fairfield County Council to name the Blackstock Mini Park after John Melvin Boulware. If I can get a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. If we could have Mr. Boulware's family to come up, Dr. Roberts is going to read the resolution. And once again, I apologize for y'all having to sit here this long.
The resolution reads as follows. A resolution by Fairfield County Council to name the Blackstock Mini Park after deceased John Melvin Boulware. Whereas the Fairfield County Council desires to honor the deceased John Melvin Boulware. Mr. Boulware was born in the Midford area of Fairfield County on March 24, 1936, and passed away on October 2, 2015. He was married to Alice Boulware, and they had 1 son, Robert, and 1 daughter, Carolyn. Mr. Boulware always encouraged his children to better themselves and to invest in their future. By doing so, his daughter, Carolyn B. Salters, purchased land, and when she decided she did not want it for personal use, he advised her to sell it to Fairfield County for the use of a mini park, and so it was. Now therefore be it resolved that the Fairfield County Council authorizes the name change of the Blackstock Mini Park to the John M. Bolwell Mini Park, adopted this 11th day of December 2023 by order of Fairfield County Council.
Hey, thank you. Hey, how you doing? Good, how are you? Okay. How you doing? How you doing, man? Hey. All right.
So everybody just look forward, be happy to be here, just take a smile with it, let's take a few shots.
All right, Ms. Williams, I apologize for having to interrupt you, but we can go back to item D. Has already been a motion and seconded, and we was doing discussion on it. And I apologize to you as well.
Oh, no problem, sir. All right, good evening. Thank y'all again for having us here and allowing us to kind of bring this to you. As we stated earlier, we've reached a very bad breaking point in our units. Unfortunately, historically, with previous administration, previous leadership, we just did not protect our units the way it really should have been. I'm just being honest in that aspect. I became interim director back in July. Since that time, we've started working very hard, identifying, knowing that our units were going to be our breaking point. I was asked many times, what was my biggest fear? What kept me up at night? And it was always my fleet. I knew that our staffing was going to improve. I knew that our response times were going to improve. We've put forth a great effort. Our group that we have now is very dedicated. They're working very hard to provide for our citizens. Since July until now, our response times has now decreased over 2 minutes. That is due to using a different staffing pattern that's been used historically. When I came on as the interim and when I became the EMS director in September, end of September, we had 13 openings. I am pleased to announce that right now we're down to 9 openings, and that's after losing 2 current positions. So we're actually had, since my time in September until now, 6 full-time employees come aboard. During that time, that has also helped us to improve our response times. We're currently down to 10 minutes and 13 seconds is what our average is for last month. Starting in July, we was over 13 minutes. That's a great improvement. I'm very proud of that. Unfortunately, when we get to our fleet, that's where we are having our issues. When I presented this to Ms. Johnson last week, we were down to having 1, as we call, last resort unit. Unfortunately, we had to put that unit in service today. We had another breakdown. Our fleet, we are currently averaging, overall, our fleet on average has over 200,000 miles on them. We have 1 unit that has 86,000 or so, but the majority of them are well over 100,000. What we're asking for is not only to help us with an immediate need as far as purchasing these used units, but these used units will also take and be utilized in the future as well. What's happening across the state of EMS, and this is just not a Fairfield County problem, this is not just a South Carolina problem, this is a national problem. We have new units on order that was very graciously given. Unfortunately, those units don't arrive until the end of 2025, first of 2026. That is hurting our ability to have quality units on the road. So what's happening is the used market is now, like with cars, it is becoming very hot. It's getting hard to accomplish. So we've identified several units that not only are going to take and help us in this interim term, but it's going to be used for long term as well. One of the things that we will be using is we're going to take some of our units now that we have that are getting older and start refurbishing them in the next upcoming budget years. These units that we're going to be purchasing will be purchased in mind specifically knowing that the cost savings to our taxpayers is going to be significant, as taking those units as well and refurbishing them in the future. When it comes to maintenance costs and things like that, unfortunately, our shop is not really designed to work on diesel engines. Most of our units are diesels. We are transitioning with the 3 new units to gasoline. We've done that for several reasons. One, our shop will be able to fix them a lot easier without having to ship them out of our area to get fixed. 2, it's also going to help us with our maintenance costs and also our fuel consumption and our fuel costs. So by looking at doing these used units, hopefully, it's going to help us in the short term, but we're going to take and repurpose those units in the future, which will be another cost savings that we will be able to pass down the road. Currently, those type of units now, just to get what we call a donation box or a donor box, just to be refurbed as a Generation 2, costs roughly $100,000 each, and that's in rough shape. These units that we have identified at the top end is around 140. By taking in now, fixing our problems that we have now, but also it's going to be an investment in our future as well.
Mr. Roof.
Yeah, so these are in, a couple of things there in pretty good condition, I assume?
Yes, sir. Each one of them is, the oldest one that we're looking at is actually a 2017, which will actually become our second youngest unit in our fleet. And the other one is actually a 2019.
And when would you be able to put these in service if this goes through?
So they are, the 2 that we've located are currently up in North Carolina. They're up in West Jefferson. My plan is, if approved, is to move this week to get those units procured. It will take approximately 1 week to 2 weeks to get the graphics designed put on there. We will have to find a entity to do it. I've already started looking around to see what the time frames is. Unfortunately, we will be buttoned up against the Christmas time, but my vision, my hope was to have these 2 units in service by the turn of the calendar year, if not shortly afterwards.
How many will that give you total when you get these 2?
Those 2 will put us up to 8.
How many do you need to be fully, whatever, stocked, staffed, done?
Well, so currently we are designed to have 11 units. As we've kind of put in the briefing report for you, okay? So Medic 1 is no longer roadworthy, all right? Medic 4 is which we're considering our last resort unit. It's the same manufacturer as Unit 1 and Unit 11, which is by TaylorMade. Unit 11 was a unit that was unfortunately vandalized in the last few weeks. We still have yet to receive any information from the Insurance Reserve Fund about coming down to look at it to see what the damage is. But by having preliminary talks with our adjuster, he is in kind of the same agreement as I have been, is that the unit, with it being manufactured by TaylorMade, who has been out of business for several years, that the extensive damage to it with the electrical components, which are most likely they are proprietary to that manufacturer. Finding someone that's going to be able to fix that is going to be extremely costly. And so these 2 units will place us at a decent aspect, as we're still waiting units that are in the shop to be fixed, as we just had one place in the shop today that unfortunately had to go back down to Columbia for an issue that our county shop is unable to fix.
The one that is vandalized out at Blair, will that possibly be totaled and you might get insurance?
Yes, that's the understanding due to, again, the manufacturer, the age of the vehicle and stuff like that. That unit currently has 235,054 miles on it. So it's already beyond its lifespan, which unfortunately about 3/4 of our fleet is already beyond its usable lifespan. We're hoping that these 2 units are going to bridge us, along with our internal plan to start limiting the mileages by moving the units around so the mileages are more evenly spread across the fleet. That is something that unfortunately wasn't done prior to me becoming the director, and that's something we're actively working on to try to reduce that, which will end up saving more money down the road.
How many new ones did we approve for you?
So back in April, the ARPA money purchased 1 unit, and then this capital budget year, we was able to get 2.
So you got 2 coming, but it'll be 25 before it gets here.
At the very end of 2025, first part of 2026. And that's if not any more disruption of the supply chain happen. The problem is, again, what happened with COVID was very significant, not only, of course, to our health and stuff. Also, we know about supply chain issue, but also to employment. Again, we're not immune from it as well. EMS across the country, unfortunately, has hit rock bottom when it comes to employment. There are numerous openings everywhere. We are very active. One of the things that has really drove a lot of stuff recently for us, we're now advertising outside of the county website. We're actually doing our own advertising through Indeed, through social media, which has really driven a lot of people to us, a lot of attention to us. And we're going to work even harder to get those done. So that brings to the point of what's happened with the ambulances is agencies across the country have been forced to contract what they've been purchasing for many years because of recessions and stuff like that, not improvement in capital funds. So now there's been a mad rush on getting units built. So now the manufacturers are unfortunately not able to meet those demands. Pre-COVID, we could order a unit and get it in 120 days. Now, if I was to order a brand unit today, they're telling me that it's going to be at least 3 years before I get it. And this is why looking at used ambulances is our option here, but also that investment in that used ambulance is not just for right now. It's to bridge, but we're going to now get a useful module box from it, which the patient compartment is. That part is designed to last for 20 years plus. It's the chassis that wears down. So our plan is to take, again, with our usable units that we have now, in the future, refurbish those to the price of 2 refurbs for the cost of 1 new ambulance. But also that refurb process actually is only 6 months to 8 months, which will impact and speed up. So our hope is not only with this, but when it comes to capital improvements for next year, is to ask for some refurb units, which will help supplement prior to getting our new units in 2026. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry I didn't use mic. That's 3 units instead of 2.
Yes, ma'am, yes.
What's the average lifespan for a unit? I mean, when should it come off the road? Do you have a certain mileage that it needs to come off?
So it's not really mileage based per se. You know, when I've talked to various directors, and again, with my previous role with the state office, I've talked with many directors across the state, and also sat on national councils that talked about this very problem. Most units, when they get towards 200,000 miles, they've become problematic. That's where the increased cost comes in. But that's the chassis aspect of it. It's not the actual patient module part. So that patient module part is what costs the most money, all right? So, for example, you know, if we was to take and have to replace just a module, all right, that's upwards of 300,000. That's where the significant cost comes in. The chassis itself is 35, 40,000, but it's the patient module box that costs the most money. So not only I'm not trying to beat the proverbial dead horse here, but this investment is not only short term, but it's also to get us 2 very good boxes or modules that we can use in the future to place new chassis on and save the county a lot of money in the future.
Well, thank you for being here. I will say that I had a citizen reach out to me recently and wanted to recognize 2 of your employees, a Miss Maggie Ferguson, and I think the other ones, I can't remember the first name, but the last name might end in Kim.
Aaron Kim.
Okay. This citizen wanted to recognize these 2. They came to her residence, and she said that they were outstanding and very professional. So I wanted to put that on the record. If you would let them know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we can get together and you can find me more specific so I can actually recognize a particular call for them as well.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
This is that we don't need to vote on that. So it is an action item.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, it is an ordinance. It's just because it's an emergency ordinance,
Okay.
It only requires one reading
Okay.
and no public hearing.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0, emergency ordinance number 831. We already done E. We are down to F, resolution number 2023-07, a resolution by Fairfield County Council to transfer up to $1,517,000 in general funds previously approved by Fairfield County Council for the purpose of funding the construction of the speculative building located on parcel 9 in the Fairfield Commerce Center and other matters related thereto.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Chair, I do like to have deja vu from time to time, but I don't have $1.5 million worth of deja vu. So I'd like to know what's going on if possible.
Council, the prior council approved 2 ordinances. It was Ordinance 788 and Ordinance 804 for a total of the $1,517,000. In those ordinances, it specifically stated where the funds were supposed to come from, a Fund 406, which is Walter B. Brown Industrial Park. When I went to look at Fund 406 so I could transfer the funds per these 2 prior ordinances, it had a 0 fund balance. So the reason for this resolution is to still do what council had passed, to transfer the money to the spec building construction on parcel 9, but it can't come from Fund 406 because there's no funds in that account. So that's why this ordinance specifically states to come from the general fund.
Can I ask a question? Where did they go?
I tried to track it back, and I found at least about, I think, about $751,000 of it. It was transferred to a spec development account, but it was for parcel 7, $751,915. So it was transferred to another fund to cover some expenses related to parcel 9. So, and this was done September 2022. The entry was done. Council had approved Ordinance 788 February 2022, and the second ordinance you approved December 2022. So in between that, the funds have been transferred to cover some other expenses with parcel 7.
Well, if that's 700,000, what happened to the other 800,000? Where'd it go? Can you tell me?
If I knew, yes, I would, ma'am.
It evaporated?
I don't think so. I was specifically going by what the ordinance said, looking in Fund 406. It would take a lot of time to try to figure out. 406, I knew it was how much was transferred from 406. So I'm looking in for Fund 406, where it says the money should be taken from. So after the 751 was transferred out of that account, there's nothing left in the account.
Who transferred it?
It was a journal entry that was done. I traced it back to a journal entry that was done by the former finance director. So in order for me to get any more information about the transfers, it would take a lot of time and probably have to have a discussion with her about what happened.
I think we need a discussion. $800,000 can't just flip up and
It
go
probably
away.
was put in another account, but I don't know what account that it was put in. I'm pretty sure it didn't evaporate, it didn't disappear. It could have been transferred into the general fund, but going back for me to do that, I would need some assistance because I would have to run the entire journal entry to try to figure out what went where.
Does that need a council approval correction?
Yes, I think this resolution need council approval. The amount has already been approved, but the source.
Gotcha.
I think we need to know where it is, where it went to.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what y'all think, but I do. I mean, you know, it's $1.5 million. That $750, y'all. That's 1.5 million. We need to know where it is.
Well, should we table this until we have more time?
I'm sorry. The problem is this, since this was already obligated and it was already passed, we have invoices that need to be paid that is relying on this 1.5. It was already approved by council to allocate this money to that project.
We got to find out where it is.
Ms. Johnson can definitely do some research and try to get you an answer of where that money went. But the question before us now is we got to approve this resolution to pay for the invoices that's outstanding.
I understand that, but we need to know where the money is.
We can still go ahead and still look and trace back. That's going to take a lot more time. But again, the 1.5 was already approved by county council, prior council, and it was obligated for this project. Yes, we do.
I just want to know who transferred it, who gave me the authority to do it,
It's already been,
and where it went to.
yeah, it's already been moved and properly seconded. We already had discussion. All those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. Resolution number 2023-07. Now we are down to item 10, Board and Commission minutes for information only. Behavioral Health Services, 7/17/23, 8/21/23, 9/18/23, and 10/16/23. This is for information only. We are down to 11A, Board and Commission appointments. We have before us for the Library Board, Ms. Lisa Cathcart from District 7. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and properly seconded to appoint Ms. Lisa Cathcart from District 7 to the Library Board. Is there any discussion? Only question I would have is Ms. Cathcart does reside in District 7, correct? All right, no other discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0 on Ms. Cathcart to the Library Board. Item 12, old business. Item A, the Ridgeway Recreation Center ribbon cutting update. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to give you an update, we have completed the final punch list for the Ridgeway Rec Center, but we are postponing scheduling a ribbon cutting until after the first of the year. We'd like to get the rec center fully staffed. We don't want to have a ribbon cutting and then the citizens can't actually use it because we don't have staff. So the Parks and Rec Director is currently advertising and interviewing people who serve there. So once we have it fully staffed, then we will schedule a ribbon cutting. We just want to let you know that the building's near completion, but we also ask residents not to go into the building that's not staffed at this moment.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Next, Ms. Williams, but you can be a doctor if you like. Next, we are down to 12B, short-term rental update. Ms. Williams.
Don't want to go back to school for doctor, but just to let y'all know, we did have the short-term rental public meeting on November 21st. As it was stated earlier during the public meeting, we do think it was a very well attended meeting. We got lots of good feedback. We'll be working, Carter Thompson, our community development director, is working to incorporate the comments we received, both written and emailed afterwards. We also had a meeting specifically with Airbnb and their local representative. They were aware that we're looking at an ordinance and reached out to us, and we learned a lot of useful information about the controls they have in place to try to address some of the same citizen concerns. So what we'll be doing is, again, after the turn of the year, pulling together the committee to talk about what happened at the public meeting, the recommendations, the response to our comments, so that we can finalize an ordinance that will then come to council. We just want to let you know where we were with that process. Thank you.
Williams. New business, none. We are down to item 14, County Administrator's Report. Item A, introduction of new project manager, Ms. Johnson.
All right, and thank you. He's been very patient. I would like to introduce Mr. Robert Lathrop. In case you don't remember, previous council did approve the hiring of a project manager for construction and engineering services out of the rural stabilization funds that we received to oversee several of the county projects. We have a lot of projects that are going on that were not being managed prior, and now we have one centralized location where the different projects will be managed. Mr. Lathrop, we're very happy to have him in his very first day on the job, and he's sat through our council meeting today. He grew up in Aiken, South Carolina, attended Clemson University, and graduated in 1983 with a BS in civil engineering. He's worked in state and municipal government on civil engineering projects, private sector business development. He also spent 17 years as a country director in Nicaragua for a mission agency providing construction services, and the last 4 years as a construction director for ministry in Florida providing homes to the homeless. He's married to his wife, Murray, my apologies, and they have 3 children. And he's very excited because he bought property in Winsboro in 2018 with the hopes of moving here, and he has now accomplished that goal with this position. So thank you, Mr. Lathrop, and thank you for sticking it out for the introduction.
Thank you for being on board with Fairfield County and moving here. Can you state his name again, please?
It's Robert Lathrop.
Do you have anything you wish to say? Make it brief. All right, thank you so much. If you want to talk in length, I give you another night, okay? Now we are down to item B, formation of State Accommodations Tax Committee. Ms. Johnson.
Really quickly, Council, per state law, we are required to form an accommodation tax advisory committee. It's for the state accommodation funds, not our local. It has to be comprised of 7 members, 2 from the lodging sector, 2 from hospitality, 1 from, it says cultural interest, and 2 at large. So it's going to be a total of 7 members. We're going to put an application out there on the website sometime in January if there's anybody that is interested in serving on this committee. So the intent of this committee is that prior to the budget being approved by council, when budget requests come in, that this committee will actually look at the budget requests first and make a recommendation to council. So we just wanted to keep you posted on that. We'll have that out sometime in January. Next is joint water system update. Again, this is like really quickly. A letter for request of interest LOI for professional engineering services for the plant system design and delivery has been posted today on our site. Basically, this, again, a letter of interest. It gives any interested parties an opportunity to ask questions before the request for qualifications for the plant goes out. It was issued, it was actually put on the website today and also on Skibo. The deadline for written questions is December 20th. Interviews, if any, will be January 8th, and the due date for the letter of interest will be January 17th. It just gives us a peek view of who might be turning in proposals for the RFQ. And if any questions that arise that the commission feels that should go as a part of the RFQ, it can go in the RFQ. Okay, I'm keeping moving. There's no questions. Food box distribution. We're having a food box distribution on the 19th. Yeah. It's going to be at 5 sites, 3 of them are going to be at our schools, the middle school, Gigger Elementary, McCoy Liston. One's going to be at our airport, and the other one's going to be at Midford Fire Station. It starts at 5 p.m. Okay, but I know a lot of people get a little upset when they actually come and they think that we've done something, but we hadn't. We have the officers, the sheriff officers are present. The line normally forms about 4 o'clock. Sometimes, depending on where it is, they'll start lining up at 3:30 and they will wait. The officers let us know when we have to start if it's before 5 o'clock. So if the line is forming on the main highway, they come and tell us, you have to start now, because this is a safety issue. You must show an official ID proving that you are a Fairfield County resident. For those that have recently moved into Fairfield County, but you have not changed your license, a tax bill or something in your name in Fairfield County showing proof of residency. Limit 1 box per person, not per car. Per person, if we already know we have this situation, 3 or 4 people get in a car, they come to get a box. We check all the IDs. As long as there's different addresses on there, they can get a box. But if they all have the same residency, they can't. It's only just one. And again, it's first come, first serve. So in the past, when we've done this, we're actually done in about an hour. So. No. You can't pick up for anybody else, even if you have their license and say, I'm picking up for this person. You have to be present. And that does create, some tension, and people get upset because they are picking up from someone that wasn't able to come. And even if it's a valid license, you need to be present to get a box, okay? Yes.
Yes, because essentially there's some homebound people I know that are cared for that.
Yes, ma'am, and that's where the problem comes in. So there are people that come to say, I know Joe, he's my neighbor, he's bedridden. We don't know if that's true or not. We have no evidence of that. That's why we're trying to do first come, first serve. You have to have a license. And we haven't figured out a way to get around that. Any other questions? Okay. The point in time is going to be Ms. Williams.
Members of council, we just want to make you aware that Fairfield Forward and the United Way of the Midlands is hosting the 2024 Point in Time Homeless Count. This is a homeless study that's done each year by HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development. The PIC counts across the country are used as a primary data source to inform federal funding for programs and services to end homelessness and to track progress against establishments. Fairfield County has not had a PIC homeless count done in several years, so this is a great opportunity for us. It was also one of the draft recommendations that was mentioned during the housing study, is that knowing how many people are not homed in Fairfield County can help us address our housing needs. So what they are doing are asking if there are volunteers. Volunteers are needed to conduct the counts in Fairfield County. So if there is someone who's interested in volunteering to help with this PIC count, they can contact Eric Rosedale at 803-429-5510. They will provide information to the volunteers as well as training. The training will be conducted the week before the count, which is January 24th. And Mr. Rosedale is also coordinating with the EMS, Fire, and Sheriff Office because they would like to also have public safety working with the volunteers during this count. So if there is someone who would like to volunteer and work with the United Way of the Midlands and Fairfield Forward for that count, they can reach out to get that information. Finally, moving on, it is listed as an action item, but we are not asking for a vote tonight. You would have received a draft copy of the policy for acceptance of private dirt and gravel roads. If y'all remember earlier this year, we worked on updating the county's road maintenance policy and procedures to take out what are called common driveways. But if there are citizens who would like to turn their road into a county road, then we talked about coming back with application procedures to make it an actual public road and not a private common driveway. And so this is just a draft for you all to consider. It can't be a private driveway. You need to have at least 5 occupied residents on individually owned properties. For instance, we mentioned someone may add a house onto their current parcel, and now that driveway would count as for county maintenance under the previous policy. So it has to be a separate parcel. You have to be directly accessible by a public road, and the road surface must be at least 16 feet in width. Every property owner abutting the drive or the road would have to sign the application. County council, it will come to you all for review and approval after it's already reviewed by the Public Works Department. And they would also have to dedicate the associated right-of-way to Fairfield County in case the county has to go out and do any additional maintenance on the road. So again, this is just the initial draft. We're still working with the Public Works Department to finalize, but we wanted to get the draft to you all. So if you do read over this and have any questions, please let us know, and we'll take that back into consideration when we bring the draft policy back for your review and approval.
Now we move on to the recommended recipients of the local accommodations and hospitality tax funds. This will be an action item, council. You all have received all of the applications in your packet. You've already received our recommendations and the reasons and I guess supporting documentation for our recommendations. Council, I want to bring back up this application guideline. When we first generated this and put it online, even before we put it online, we made several comments at prior county council meetings that it is very important that anybody applying for the grant, please include all of the required information and the documents in order to be considered for this grant. We've said several times that we are here to help. If you have questions or comments, we're here to help you with your application. We also stated that any incomplete applications will be automatically denied. That does not mean we're going to call you and say you did it wrong, you forgot to include A, B, C, D. It is automatically denied. So you have your attachment sheet. There were 5 applications received. Counting to make sure. And
Ms. Johnson, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but before you go forward, I just wanted to state that this is based on a committee that was formed, correct?
yes, we had a committee of 4. All of us looked at each of the applications individually. We met. We had probably close to an hour and a half to almost 2-hour discussion on each one. And for our recommendations, it was unanimous. This is our recommendations, and we went solely by what we required in the grant. I want council also to take into consideration, this may be a local grant, but if it was a federal grant or a state grant, and we were applying for one of those grants, if it had specific requirements that needed to be included in your application, if those requirements were not included and those documents were not included, it would actually automatically be denied.
Thank you. I just, I wanted to put that on the record that there was no council involvement.
No.
Everything is recommendations from.
Council was not consulted. Council did not receive copies of these packets prior to us, the committee, reviewing them and making our recommendations.
Being that it was a local committee, you basically still had to abide by the state rules also, correct?
Yes, because even though these are local monies that are collected, we still have to abide by SC Code of Laws. Tommy quotes this stuff, I don't. SC Code of Laws regarding accommodations and hospitality tax. So we still had to abide by those provisions, and those laws were actually stated in the application. So in regards to the 5 applications, the committee unanimously approved 2 of the 2. They actually followed the criteria. They put all of the required documents in their application, and that's why they were approved. I really don't, unless council wants to do so, I really prefer for the ones that did not get approved not to really talk about what they didn't do, what was not included in their packet, etc. We're going to send letters out explaining to them in detail, this is what was required, this is the information that you did not include, to help them understand why it was denied. Is that okay?
I don't have anything. I'd say motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Well, I should announce who we recommended. I want to just announce who we recommended. It would be the Railroad Commission Museum, in the amount of $186,000, and also the Town of Ridgeway for $49,655.53, for a total of $235,655.53.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I'm sorry. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Yes, I have one question. I read through all of the applications that were sent to us this week, and there are maybe one of the applications that I want to ask is there. I mean, if we can't do it with accommodation tax, is it something that we can look at during our budget that we might be able to implement some help that way?
Yes, sir, you definitely can use other sources of funding.
Okay.
And request that.
Okay.
Mr. Roof?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, well, I'm glad the Town of Ridgeway and the Railroad Museum got the funding. But I would certainly, I'm disappointed that the Ag and Art and the Farmers Market in particular were denied, and I understand what you're saying. But I would like to find a source of funding to help, because I truly believe in the farmers market and Ag and Art and what they do to promote tourism and for the county and the town of Winsboro. And I hope we can find a way to fund them in some way.
That was my reason for the question.
I understand. I appreciate that. So I
So
would be
council
for
has a
that.
recommendation, yes, we can consider, or if you want administration to bring you back a recommendation, we can do that as well. Okay.
Anybody else? I would agree with Mr. Roof and Mr. Gilbert. I don't think that request was that much, and whatever we can do to help that organization, I would appreciate it. I think it is needed in Fairfield County. I do think that they do a great job in what they do. I understand the application process has to be done a certain way, or you fall out of the application process if it's not submitted correctly, and that eliminates them from consideration. But if it's something that we can do to help maybe that organization or other organizations, I would be inclined to do so. If you could bring council back a recommendation, that would be greatly appreciated.
And as I said, council, it just can't come from these monies. And that's why it was not approved, because, again, of the requirements. Because also, if everyone that applies for these types of funds, we don't need to make exceptions to it, because there were other organizations that actually did very well in putting their packet together and took time into consideration to do it. So, and those are the ones that got approved. So I would definitely come back with a plan and a suggested amount, but it would have to come from the general fund, not from the accommodations tax at this time.
Mr. Roof.
One more thing. Yeah, between the two that were awarded, the Railroad Museum was $186,000, and the Town of Ridgeway was almost $50,000, so almost $240,000. And between the Ag and Art and the Farmers Market, that's less than $15,000. So it's really not, in the big picture, a lot of money. But so I do hope we can support them. Thank you.
Yeah. My question, if you bring back the recommendation, we would still have to do it during the budget. Am I not correct? Or if we do it from the general fund, that's like an amendment to the budget, right? And this is one of the things that we said we're not gonna do it again, so we have to be done during budget time. Am I correct?
If it's a small amount of money such as this, I have a small contingency account that's already budgeted and approved by council, that if it's a small amount, I can do it that way.
Just wanted to.
Okay. No more discussion. All those in favor of not Ms. Johnson, I guess the committee's recommendation.
Aye.
The committee's recommendation for the two that would receive the money.
Aye.
That's a separate thing. So everybody, aye. Any opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0 on that particular action item.
You have in your packets on your desk the November 2023 finance report. Again, please review any questions or comments. Need further information, please send an email or call. Next, we have an audit update. The audit is going well. We have been providing any additional documents as requested, but also keep in mind that the audit did not begin until November. Last month, we received notification that legislation has passed that allows all counties to request a 90-day extension without having your state funds to be withheld. So we've already filled out that because we don't know when the audit is going to be finalized with holidays, et cetera, and it's not beginning until November. I'm pretty sure it's definitely not going to be done by December 31st. So we went ahead and put that in. Do not anticipate using a 3-month extension, but we just put it in there anyway. And the state has sent a letter saying that they approve the extension.
Mr. Roof.
Very good. Just curious, is some of this problem still, is that the audit firm, are they delaying, causing any delay for you?
Well, to be honest, the reason that they had scheduled us for November to begin test work is because of not being prepared for the fiscal year 22 audit. So it pushes us back because we weren't prepared. And they are actually going to get the counties and the other entities that are prepared and ready for them. So they ended up putting us on a list for November. Okay, and also in regards to the audit and additional financial information, I wanted to, first of all, the finance director, Ms. Beverly Mosey, fell ill and she was unable to attend. She sends her apologies. So she's well versed on this information that I'm about to give you, so just bear with me because I had to pull this together rather quickly with her assistance. Thus far, we have paid the IRS in penalties and interest $1,184,417.11.
Repeat that, please.
$1,184,417.11. So I'm going to go through all of this so we can all have an understanding.
That's 1.2 million.
Yes, ma'am. And
Thank you.
We'll add some more to it in a minute. Tax year 2017, IRS forms with their 1094s and 1095s, they are healthcare forms. They are, let's see. It was submitted in a timely manner, but it contained errors. So the file for the 2017 healthcare forms was not successfully submitted to the IRS until February 15th, 2023. This resulted in us paying $386,379.51 just for that one occurrence, okay?
Wait a minute. This is a 2017?
2017.
And it was submitted in 2023?
Yes.
Is that what you just said?
Yes, ma'am. So the penalties and interest total $386,379.51. I'm moving forward. Tax year 2019. There's a quarterly report. It's called 941. This is a quarterly report. It was for the quarter ended 12/31/2019. That means it's due January 31st, 2020. According to the letter from the IRS, it wasn't paid in full and it was not received by the deadline. It was received March 2020, not January 2020. Tax year 2019. Okay. We cannot confirm if letters were coming from the IRS. We cannot find letters going back from 2020 on. But we received, Finance Department received these letters around May, June 2023. At that time, when they received the letters, we had to pay $378,682.76. We paid that June 2023. So let's all keep in mind that when taxes are due and the forms are due, if we're late, they start calculating the penalties and the interest, and it goes and keeps accumulating until you actually pay that bill. Tax year 2020, a quarterly report for December 31st, 2020, the letter said failed to file in a timely manner. Okay, so we had to pay $390,000 $27.18. That check was cut June 14th.
Of this year.
Yes, everything I'm talking about we paid this year. Tax year 2021. A quarterly report for 12/31/2021. It was filed twice, so the IRS sent a letter and said you filed it twice. We combined both of your returns, determined what taxes had not been remitted, and then added the penalties and interest. That was $29,327.66. Tax year 2022. Quarterly report for 9/30/2022. It was due October 2022. With the changing of staff and everything and new payroll person, they discovered that the report had never been submitted to the IRS. So Finance prepared this report and submitted it June 2023. The bill has not come for this particular liability, but I should have let you know, Ms. Mosey has talked to the IRS about 3 to 4 times trying to figure out what these bills are, et cetera. So this is what she was told. But for the tax year 2022, the bill from the IRS has not come yet, but they have verbally told Ms. Mosey that a bill for $214,133.96 for that occurrence will be mailed. Also, in her conversations with the IRS, for tax year 2021, there was the healthcare forms. She was informed that the healthcare forms, which is 1094 and 1095, they have never been submitted. So can't give you penalties and interest on that because it hadn't been submitted. So it's up for the current staff to submit this file. It's going to be a little bit delayed because with the changing in the staff, they have to ask for new user ID and passwords from the IRS, okay? They have already done that, so they have to wait until these passwords come. They did not expect anything from other years not to have been submitted. They were preparing for the end of this year, in which tax forms are going to be due end of January. Some of them, like this healthcare form, is not due to March. So the request has been made for the user ID and passwords. According to the standard language from the IRS, it could take up to 45 days for them to mail the credentials. So we can't remit. Finance cannot remit, or HR cannot remit these healthcare forms until they get the user ID and password and then generate the file. You all were I had told Ms. Mosey, just out of respect, please call the former finance director because we just wanted to understand what was going on and where she was in all of this. Had there been appeals, et cetera. I put on your desk, she sent you all an email actually explaining, and it was basically talking about the healthcare forms. So in her email, she's referring to the healthcare forms, but no comments were made about the other quarterly reports that Ms. Mosey discussed with her over the phone. So also you can see in Ms. Bass' email, it says that any IRS letter that came after she was gone that she is not aware of, and that these letters, she says, I think she never received these letters or have no knowledge of all of this. So, but we wanted to give her at least the opportunity to ask where we were in this. She did explain again in the email that she had did appeals. I don't know for which of these areas an appeal was done, but we found no correspondence regarding these tax years, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, with any appeal process started. I think my concern more so is in an appeal process, you must include why this happened, what was the mitigating circumstances, to ask them to please refund us this money. And honestly, I have yet to understand or to know why all of this occurred. The untimely filing, not filing at all. So with the $1,184,417.11, that's what has already been paid. What is yet to be paid is the $214,133.96. When we get the bill, we'll pay that. That brings the total up to $1,398,551.07. That $1,398,551.07 does not include the tax year 2021 forms that I just discussed with you, the healthcare forms that have not been submitted as of this date because we got to get the user ID and password for the new staff in order to remit those, to remit that file. So after that file is remitted to the IRS, then I expect sometime after that to get another bill for late filing. And you also have, since Ms. Mosey was ill and could not make it, she also wrote an email to me about the telephone conversation that she had with Ms. Bass. I put that, you have that as well.
This $1.5 million, that's our taxpayers' money.
Yes.
That's absolutely inexcusable. They want transparency. We need to know why this happened.
I agree.
How are we gonna find out?
Went to the source, so, I mean, I
Source
can't.
didn't tell us much.
Well, that's true, but there's no way for us to find out exactly what happened, because if a quarterly report is late, it's late. That's it. That's the reason. It was submitted late.
But if you're the finance director, don't you know when these things are due?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Morgan, what can we do about this?
Ms. Winterton, I think at this moment, would be best we go into executive session. I could
That's
probably,
fine.
give you a little bit more information about that if necessary.
Just another question. So we're looking at probably, you said, an additional fine, so it's totaling, what, 1.8 maybe total? I'm just guesstimate, wait, 1.8, what it sounds like total?
Well, it's 1,398,551.07. That's what we know about, have bills, we receive bills, whether paid or unpaid. That is what we have on record right now. And one
Still
is,
got to find that 1.5 still though, right?
yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, and just to add that these was unbudgeted, so these are going to have to come from fund balance, of course. But what we have, keep saying we, keep going back to my finance days. What finance has done though, is that when they start sending these quarterly reports, you always have to remember the burden of proof is always on you. You can say that you mailed it, et cetera, and it never made it, and they're going to tell you the burden of proof is on you. So what we have started doing is that when we are mailing these quarterly reports, until we can get approved to transmit online for the the 941 reports, that they are sending them certified and getting a signature. And that really did help because we ended up getting another letter saying, hey, you didn't remit this, and all we had to do was print a copy, make a copy of, the receipt and say, here it is. I'm done, Mr. Chair. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Now we are down to clerk to council's report, none. We are down to item 16, county council time. Any council members wish to be heard? Mr. Ruth?
Yeah, I just want to say, I hate to get this said, all this bad news right here before Christmas, but it is what it is. But anyway, want to wish everybody up here and all the citizens, everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Ruth. Ms. Green?
Ditto.
Yeah, thank everybody for being here. I know it's been a long night. Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope you have a safe holiday season. Now we are going to executive session. In executive session, receipt of legal advice and discussion of negotiations incident to propose contractual arrangements and proposed purchase of property for use as a suitable wastewater treatment plant site pursuant to South Carolina Code, Section 30-4-70A2. B, receipt of legal advice and discussion of employment of county administrator pursuant to South Carolina Code, Section 30-4-70A1. Do I have a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of executive session?
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. We are in executive session. All righty, do I have a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to come out of executive session. Just to state for the record, there was no vote or action taken in executive session. All in favor of coming out? All opposed? We are out of executive session, 7-0. Is there any other motions? It's been moved and properly seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Let the record reflect 7-0. Everybody have a safe trip going home and Merry Christmas. We are adjourned.